What's going on, everybody? Before we start today's episode, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe to the channel. I can't do what I do without y'all, so any support will be appreciated. All right, so let's get into the content. So, as everybody knows, unless you've been living under a rock, Charlie Kirk was murdered last week. I'm not going to say assassination because assassination implies something different than murder. Charlie Kirk was murdered. And while that's sad, I feel that a lot of truth is being revealed at this moment right now. Excuse me. And I feel like the truth that's being revealed, or I can see that the truth that's being revealed is that our nation, and the people that make it up are deeply, deeply sick. And this is not me pointing the finger at one quote unquote side or the other because I don't do that sides crap. I don't get into left wing, right wing, all that stuff. I just speak out against certain ideas, and what I'm seeing is the prevalence of a white supremacist ideology that's permeating our culture. And like I said, our country is sick, like really, really, really sick. And Charlie Kirk's murder really exposed it, really brought it to the core. And our country is doing everything that we can to not face it, right? The only way for us to heal is to face it, but that's not what we're doing. We're diluting it. We're trying to sanitize Charlie Kirk's legacy, his words. We're trying to alter the history of what he said, alter the definitions of the things that he said. Not even just that he said, the things that he represented, right? Because those things that Charlie Kirk represented are true American ideals, right? The idea of dehumanization, the idea of um, race, even, or one race being just defective to the point. And so those ideas have been around since before the inception of this nation, and it has plagued our nation, right? It has been the one thing keeping our nation back from being what it claims to be, right? This grand experiment of humanity coming together for a purpose of all colors. That's not really what America's history has been, right? And because of that, right, people have tried to alter history. Recently they were trying to take certain words out of the history books and make black children understand or believe that slavery wasn't as insidious or sinister as y'all make it to be. Y'all were just, workers, no different than an immigrant that comes here, like just straight, you know, intellectualizing it, trying to intellectualize it, trying to, like I said before, trying to sanitize it, trying to make it seem like, it couldn't have been that bad as people were out to make it. You know, crazy phrases like critical race theory, like I said, being used and warped to take history out of the books. But the thing about it is, we're never ever going to move past the issue of race in this country because it is this country's original sin. And we're getting, but the interesting thing about the Charlie Kirk death is that it seems like we're getting to a point where there is, I'm not going to say a majority, I don't know how many people would say, but there is a large body of the American consciousness that is ready to move on past the ideas that Charlie Kirk espoused and represented, and those that we have come to know, those same ideas that we've come to know or accept as American ideas. When Charlie Kirk died, everybody on TV wanted to act like, well, the violence that took him out, that's not who America is. And as plenty of people in their own right, I'm doing it now, but plenty of people in their own right have come out and said, no, 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 no. That's not true, actually. We are exactly the type of country that would levy violence against one another in the like that took out Charlie Kirk. That is who we are. I mean, go read American history book, chapter and verse. You're not going to get past the first decade of the country's inception without political violence. So the idea that, this is not who we are is, again, us trying not to deal with the pain of what caused Charlie Kirk's death. See, we have to go deeper than just the surface of, well, murder's wrong. Sure, murder's wrong, right? And nobody is saying that Charlie Kirk, the man, the human, deserved to die. But make no doubt about it. People are ready to move on from the Charlie Kirks of the world. I don't feel like people are celebrating the death of a father, the father that was Charlie Kirk, or the husband that was Charlie Kirk, or the friend that was Charlie Kirk. Like I said before, nobody's celebrating the death of the human. I feel like a lot of people are finding humor in the irony of his death and the things that he may have espoused and how it's, again, ironic how he went. But I think people are finding humor in that. But I don't think there are many, I'm not saying there are any, because there certainly are, but aren't many people who truly find joy in his death. I don't believe. Like I said, I think I know what we're seeing on social media, but like I said before, I think that's more of a celebration of like the irony of like, you know how a lot of people say fuck around and find out. I think that's kind of what people feel like happened to Charlie Kirk, right? But I don't think people are happy, like I said, because they don't know the husband, Charlie Kirk. They don't know the father. They don't know the friend, right? They know TPUSA Charlie, the dude that peddled in lies and manipulation, the dude that could see the differences between us as ethnicities and cultures, and instead of highlighting the similarities that could possibly unify us and assuage our fears and things like that, he decided to spew lies and manipulate aspects of the truth to warp that reality, to perpetuate fear and hate, if we're just being honest. And people want to not be honest about that. People want to pretend like he stood for something more than what he actually stood for. The dude peddled in lies and fear and manipulation for personal gain. I'm not even gonna say political gain, because dude didn't have any political wins, if we're being honest. What did he do politically that was a win? I guess they're saying down here in Florida, where I'm at, he was able to get some laws passed so they changed history books. Okay, well, that's about his only win. Other than that, like, what did Charlie Kirk really do but get on microphones and talk and spew hatred, right? And the issue with what Charlie Kirk was saying is that they were lies, and is that they didn't show compassion, right? Like I said, and it pressed on the fears that we have in other. Every human has a need for safety, but when you take something like crime or murder and you make it not a human issue, not something that, hey, we're all afraid of this thing. Nobody wants to be killed. Nobody wants their children to get school shot. If you take that and you make that about a specific group of people and their, in his perspective, outlier behavior or defective behavior, or however you want to call it, that divides us even more. I don't know why people can't see that. When you sit around and you say things like I said, I'm sure he showed compassion to his family and friends, right? But when you sit up there and tell a blatant lie, like I seen, because people get mad, oh, his words taken out of context. His words are not being taken out of context. Charlie Kirk literally said, somebody asked one of his debates, somebody asked him about Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. Asked him, what's the difference between the Carmelo Anthony case and the Trayvon Martin George Zimmerman case? And Charlie Kirk literally said, Trayvon Martin hunted down George Zimmerman at 2 a.m. Now you tell me what, that's like I've said before to people in my personal life, whether or not he agrees with George Zimmerman beating that case, getting off, maintaining his freedom or whatever, that's not the point, right? That's not the point. The point is for him to say something that was a blatant lie. Regardless of what you think about Trayvon Martin, regardless of what you think about that case, he did not hunt down George Zimmerman. Like, that is just a lie. And so when people are propping him up, trying to make him say that he is the white supremacist version of MLK, that is extremely dangerous, extremely harmful. Not necessarily to people like me and you who might be listening to this, but to malleable, impressionable minds that don't fully grasp what Dr. King stood for, or can have what Dr. King stood for and what Charlie Kirk stood for somehow melded together in a sick marriage, like an unholy marriage of like, yeah, these two men are avatars of one another, and they're not. They're really polar opposites. You can't take a Charlie Kirk speech and a Dr. King speech and erase all the human history, right? Erase everything that ever happened between humans and all the history, right? And all you re-educate them with is a Dr. King speech, or you could re-educate them with a Charlie Kirk speech. You are not going to convince me or anybody else that has a shred of intelligence that the person that the human, if humans only could live off Charlie Kirk, that we would be better off. We would not be better off, because we would be blame placers and liars and manipulators. You know, and like I said before, Charlie Kirk didn't frame crime as a human problem that needed to be dealt with humanely. That's not what he did. He made it about identity, race, and ego. what he thinks, what he feels, what he's feeling deep inside. He did not make it about the truth. For him to spit the 13%, 50% of crime stats, again, is another blatant lie because he doesn't look up exonerations for murder. He doesn't go deep enough. And he does, by the way. I want you to be, well, he did. He did, by the way. But again, I want you to understand how sinister what he was doing was because he knew the truth. Charlie Kirk knew the truth. You can't understand black, quote unquote, black crime stats and not get to all of them. He chose to cherry pick what worked for him and what fit his political, ideological narrative, right? And he made it about, again, identity and ego and sought to exploit the fear and biases that people have instead of using his gift of articulation and being able to communicate things on a mass level to people. Instead of using that power for good to say, no, you aren't different. No, I'm not different than a black pilot. You know what I'm saying? I'm equally as capable as them. That's not what he did. And for anybody sitting up there saying that's what he did, they're lying to you, which makes this, like I said before, like an unholy, satanic, and I don't like to use these terms because I'm not overly biblical, but I am spiritual. But I'm not overly biblical, but I don't know how else to view it when I see a man who's so blatantly peddled in lies be uplifted by a nation. You could say, well, he wouldn't be if it wasn't Donald Trump. Fair enough, right? But again, Donald Trump is the avatar for racism. We're not going to place this country's original sin and its sins therefore after on one man. Donald Trump is not just no different than Charlie Kirk. They're not the one examples of racism. And if we do away with them, we do away with white supremacy and that types of ideology. No, that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is Trump is stepping to the forefront and revealing who this nation is. And so by proxy is Charlie Kirk, because that was his right-hand man. So, well, not his right-hand man, that was his little homie. So they together are revealing the spirit, the consciousness of this nation. And it's revealing itself to be sick. It's revealing itself to be a country that doesn't want to face truth at all. It doesn't. Because when you uphold a man like Charlie Kirk, and he's lying, he's just blatantly lying about things. Lying, not omitting stuff. He knows better. He's lying. Right? Not to mention his comments about empathy. Like, oh, I don't think we should have empathy for each other. I think that's a word term. That's a fake term. But yet, when he dies, again, going back to the irony and why people find humor in it, everybody's crying. His wife, everybody. How wrong it is that people are laughing. This is the same man that mocked other people's death, particularly black people's death at the hands of police. But he mocked people's deaths. So again, this country, he's a weird shot of truth, and pun intended. He's a weird shot of truth for this country that's exposing us on a very, very spiritual level. Because you can't say that he had opinions, because lies are not opinions. If I say Minute Maid is the best lemonade ever, that's an opinion, right? That's an opinion because it's just about lemonade. There's nothing, factually that can be disproven. There's no harm done to anybody by liking lemonade. But when you say black people are 13% of the population but commit over 50% of violent crime without ever explaining that, well, they're actually over 50% of exonerations as well. That is harmful. When you sit up and you lie and you say Trayvon Martin hunted down George Zimmerman, that is a lie, a harmful lie. And there's nowhere in this planet, on this earth, that I'm going to be comfortable seeing people that are supposed to be my countrymen go out into the world and defend this stuff. And, it was just his opinions. He didn't deserve to die. Nobody deserves to die over their rhetoric, right? Nobody's saying that. But what we are saying is, hold up, man. You can't hold this dude up like Jesus Christ. You just can't do it. But that's what's happening. Our country, because it's so addicted to the ideology of white supremacy, and I want to be clear, not all white people share the ideology of white supremacy. That's kind of the issue that we're having right now. It's because there's a large, like I said, I can't quantify this, but I can see it. There's a large body of people who identify as white that aren't going along with white supremacy. They can see the lies in it. They can see the foundational lie in white supremacy, and they're not rocking with it. It doesn't mean that they're great people, but they're simply not rocking with the lies and the old way that our country operated, and they want something new. So Charlie Kirk was always going to be a divisive, polarizing figure, and he was never going to be a unifying agent, no matter how much people try to speak to his Christianity and his fatherhood and all these things, because Charlie Kirk was okay with the way things are in this country right now. In his world, gun violence, it's just a necessary evil, bro. Like, we got to step over a few dead bodies, bro, so I can keep the steel on me. That's not a world we should be trying to live in, man. You know what I mean? But that goes akin to like how all these, ironically enough, white countries, but all these countries have nuclear bombs. It's like, if some people if we gotta, drop a couple nuclear bombs on a country just to bring the world under our control and devastate their ecosystem and all that, then so be it. Like, you do not understand the logic and the correlations here between these people and these ideologies. You can't say you're a Christian man and then say, if people die for no good reason because we want to have guns, hey, that's just the cost of doing business. That's ridiculous. You can't be a Christian and say, people of other ethnicities and skin groups and all this stuff are just, I don't think they're as smart as me. There is no Christianity in that. There's only white supremacy in that. And a lot of you out there, y'all get those two things confused. Y'all see Charlie Kirk, and because he talked God, y'all think he's a Christian. Y'all have to remember, if you read any holy books, they'll tell you the devil knows the Bible, bro. The devil could quote the Bible to you. He could quote it, chapter, verse, scripture, here, there. He could, because he needs to. See, that's the thing about a liar. A liar works better when they know the truth, because then they can omit things and spin it and weave it and warp it. See, that's the thing that people are missing. And that's what I'm trying to say. We're trying to hide as a nation. And like I said, I'm not even putting it on one race, because it's not really about one race. It is about white supremacy, the ideology. But all white supremacists are not white people. See, and that's the great mind game and trick bag of all of this is, and white people out there, if you're not a white supremacist, stop identifying with it and stop being offended when people speak out against the white supremacist ideology, right? Because ultimately, people like Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, and there's all others, seen and unseen. They want us to keep living in this hell on earth because it keeps white people in a position of dominance, and that's all they care about. They don't care about the collective of humanity moving forward. Sure, they'll say things like that, but obviously, if they cared, things would move different. People like Charlie Kirk would not be being uplifted. People would look at him for what he is: a liar, a manipulator, a racist. And it's not wrong for us to say that. That is not defamation. That is not slandering his name. That is not speaking ill of the dead. When Charlie Kirk was alive, if you asked me about him, I would have told you he talks a lot of shit. He lies. I would have been said this. So I'm not going to say it in death, right? Like I said before, for people thinking that Charlie Kirk and his supporters are victims, or thinking that people who don't agree with Charlie Kirk, let me say it that way, are trying to victimize themselves or ourselves, that is not true. Again, you cannot tell a lie about someone and then be upset that they say, hey, you're lying about me. No, I'm not lying about you. I'm just telling the truth about you. No, you're not. Because the truth has to be rooted in truth. Again, if you're going to say that you agree with George Zimmerman, get off, you then can't say, well, Trayvon Martin hunted him down at 2 a.m. Literally everything about that statement is a lie. Everything. From what he said about Trayvon hunting down George Zimmerman, lie. The time of day it went down, lie. It was all a lie. And if somebody builds a platform upon lies, what do people think is going to happen? What do people think is going to happen? You can't rob us of truth and not give people proper perspectives. Like Charlie Kirk, another thing Charlie Kirk would like to say, the black community is the way it is because of they just abandoned their fathers. First of all, that's not true, right? That's not true. Charlie Kirk knows this or knew this. And that's not true, right? Yes, there's a level of fatherlessness that does take place in the black community. That is true. And I'm sure that it's probably higher than rates of other communities. That's true. But again, you can't just say that, because that gives people an improper perspective, historical perspective. That's why when you step up to these podcast mics and you step up to any microphone or have any level of influence, you need to mind it. Because when you can't just say black fathers abandon their children. Well, if that's the case, then some white fathers abandon their children too. Because there's a whole lot of white men in jail. And most people that end up in jail didn't have a father. So what are we talking about? And at the end of the day, if you're going to speak about the black community, you can't speak about the black community, particularly, not exclusively though, but particularly those of us that come from chattel slavery, descend from those lineage of those people here in America. You can't speak about our plight without acknowledging it. And it's not victims, right? You can't take a group of people, rape them, take their history away, split them up, split their families up, abuse them, in short, and then release them, right? Like just let them go out into society with all that wounds and trauma and think that we're gonna, as a group, they're gonna behave like a normal group. It's gonna take time. And to be fair, right? To be fair, black people, we actually done an amazing job given the circumstances. Given the circumstances. And so that's what I want to end this on. Going forward, because this is not it. It's gonna get real ill in America. So we need to protect our spirit, protect our minds, because it's gonna get real ill because our country's resistance to introspection and truth is gonna be its undoing. So get ready. This is just the beginning. This is not over. This is not over. But what I want to say to black people and all people that are in alignment with what I'm saying is keep your humanity, because ultimately the Charlie Kirks of the world, they're not going to prosper. The Donald Trumps of the world, those people that build platforms, build ideologies, build movements off of hate, they cannot survive. White supremacy as an ideology, again, I'm being very specific with what I'm saying, not white people, white supremacy as an ideology cannot survive. It will not survive. It will implode in on itself. It's going to self-destruct, just like any person that has deep pain that they've never dealt with. If you've got abuses that you've never dealt with, if you've got anger, repressed anger, if you've got any type of wound inside of you that you never dealt with, right? And you never, like I said, you never look in the mirror, literally and proverbially. You never flush it out. You never face it. All you're going to do is take your pain and put it on other people. And that's what's been happening in this country since the beginning. There's been a group of people that had a certain ideology. They took their ideology, they put action behind it, and they affected a group of people. And those group of people have been carrying that trauma. It's not even just a group of people, it's a whole country. But there's a specific group of people that a lot of this trauma was hyper-focused on. And so we're working through it, right? But we can't forget that we do have to forgive, right? We do have to not celebrate the deaths of Charlie Kirk, right? Because ultimately, Charlie Kirk does not represent the best of us. Dr. King actually does. And so we don't take joy in people dying. We take joy in the truths the lies that they spoke coming to an end. We take joy in the ideology finally being put on, what am I trying to say? Notice that, hey, you don't have free reign out here. People are pushing back. And like I said, nobody's condoning violence. But we are fighting back against this ideology because it cannot stand. It is so very harmful. And then, like I said, what it does, when people try to censor, what it does is it gets people thinking that, well, it's just an opinion. No, Charlie Kirk had more than just opinions. He had way more than just opinions. Okay? And opinions don't cause people to have hatred and racism for others. If it was just opinions, Charlie Kirk would be alive today. Charlie Kirk peddled in hate, lies, and manipulation. And after everything that black people went through, the fact that you still have some black people out there, and I know people disagree, but you still have some black people out there that can still say, forgive this man because he's ignorant and, let him rest. It's a testament to the humanity. And like I said, I'm not blaming those, because I'm one of them, that sees the humor and the irony of what happened with Charlie Kirk. Dude got killed. Dude literally said he doesn't have empathy for people. And now nobody has empathy for him. Dude got killed after saying, hey, some gun deaths are going to happen for us to keep the Second Amendment. And he was one of those deaths. This dude said free speech, hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's only free speech. And now his supporters are trying to get everybody locked up for hate speech. Like, he is a perfect example, muse for the truth that this country needs to reckon with. Because he's lies and confusion and manipulation and dashes of truth all wrapped up into one man. And when that bullet hit his neck and his essence left this world, his energy radiated out, well, what's left of it, and his legacy is spinning out through the country, and it's revealing all right now. Not all, but it's revealing things that most people are trying to ignore, but we can't ignore it. And this will not be the end of it. So keep your humanity, keep your heart focused on truth and honesty. And let's be honest, Charlie Kirk, you lived your life telling lies about us. And in death, the truths about you are being told. Thank you all for listening. I've been Demetrius. I'm Demetrius. And this has been D Stance. Thank you.